say. So the best you can do is really to follow the advice from the Japanese authorities.
There is a question regarding the use of iodine tablets. Can you tell a little bit about when you're supposed to use them and which levels of radiation? Is there any hints or advice you can give? And can you explain why people above the age of 40 will not, or is not recommended for people over the age of 40 to use iodine tablets?
Yes, iodine tablets could be used in a situation where one might be exposed to radioactive iodine. Radioactive iodine are part of the activity in a reactor, and it could be released in an accident. We have already seen some releases of radioactive iodine. I think it's important to stress too that the way you can protect you against radioactive iodine is by taking some stable, non-active iodine, and you can say that you are filling up the thyroid you have on here, and by that you avoid that you have high doses in that gland. It's important at the same time to stress that taking iodine tablets is not a general measure against radiation. It's only relevant to protect you against the exposure to radioactive iodine. Then you were asking about the recommendation. I think you should again follow the situation, follow the advice from the Japanese authorities, and if we should come to a situation where we have a major release of radioactivity from the Fukushima power plant, then you can expect that you will be informed and taking precaution. And one of these could be to take iodine tablets if you have them at hand. And that could either be done by the Japanese authorities or the Danish authorities. And then there was asking about the age. It is so that if you are an adult about 40 years, we do not recommend to use stable iodine because we don't see a major effects from the exposure from radioiodine in these age groups.
Is it advisable to wash foods in bottled water before eating them to reduce the risk of radiation?
If we assume that you have a monitoring program and you have results coming out for that, the Japanese authorities will put up requirements if the foodstuffs are above a certain level. And when they're below that, you don't need to take special precaution to clean it up. You should use it in an ordinary way.
I have another question. Any special suggestion or recommendation for the pregnant women?
Yes, it's right. You're talking about the pregnant woman. The fetus and very small are, we believe, more sensitive to radiation, and therefore it's also important to protect these. And I think you should again follow the instruction and the recommendation coming from the Japanese authorities, and they will take care also of the special measures which have to be applied in case of pregnancy and very small children.
There's a question regarding the situation at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. How do you see the current situation there? And what would happen if a breach of one of the containment vessels would happen? How would that affect us?
We are following the situation, but I'm not a nuclear physicist and not taking that. But it's my understanding that we have problems at the power plant that we cannot totally exclude the possibility to a major release. And that's why they are really struggling to get full control over the reactors up there. And that's also why we have made the recommendation regarding what can you do if you should have a major release from that. They're working hard, and we will be informed if that should be. But I think that we can say it's not stable yet, and we should be alert and follow the information given by the Japanese and other authorities.
Are the radioactive isotopes not only radioactive but also poisonous if we eat them?
The releases of radiomaterial we can have from the power plant, the major concern is the radioactivity. It's not any toxic element from it.
There is a question here from Facebook saying, if the unthinkable should occur, meaning a meltdown, how big will an evacuation area become, 50, 100 or 200 kilometers? And how far could radiation at unhealthy levels travel?
We have already seen that the Japanese authorities have evacuated out to 20 kilometers, and I have just seen before the webcast that they're considering voluntary evacuation out to 30 kilometers. That's the normal practice, that you are evacuating in these distances. Far away, you have less need to evacuate, but you might need to do other precautionary measures to limit the exposure to the population. And the most important measure you can do is to, if you have a plume with it ready to coming over you, that is to go indoors and shelter. Shut the ventilation system and close the windows and doors, and stay inside as long as the authorities will advise you to do it.
About the water, can you be sure that bottled water is actually better than the tap water?
In general, you can only be sure if your measurements. What we can say is that the bottled water we have now has been bottled before the accident, and for that reason alone you can be sure there's no problem. But if you bottle water today, then of course you need to measure so you're sure that the water you put in the bottle are safe as well.
Okay, there's one more question here. How can the Tokyo municipality change their advice on tap water from one day to the next? Can we really be sure it's safe for infants now?
The Japanese authorities have banned the drinking water for small children yesterday based on measurements. It's important that they have a fully comprehensive measuring program, and based on that they will make decision. And I think it's up to that decision how they will management that, but that they can ensure that what is put on the market, that's safe for all age groups.
There is another question from Facebook here saying, do you know how some of the water purification plants near Tokyo could have been contaminated? Was this due to groundwater contamination or due to airborne particles?
I have not detailed knowledge about the water purification plant in Tokyo and surroundings. As I understand it, it's primarily surface water taken in and purified. And if that's the case, one obvious pathway is the deposition of radioactive material from the air down on the surface of the water. But again, I am not sure I know all the details of the systems.
We fear that the radiation contamination will ruin the soil of the afflicted areas around Fukushima for a long time. Not only the present fresh produce, but future produce will be grown on that contaminated soil. How would you advise on that issue?
I think it's too early to come up with advice what will have to happen in the long run. The important is now that the area is evacuated and that you have a monitoring program. When you have full control over the accident and the releases, of course you need to characterize the deposition and the pollution. And based on that, you need to make an evaluation of what are the possible pathways from the contamination of the area to exposure of people. And based on that, the Japanese government will come with a recommendation. But I think we could expect when we've seen that there might be some more longer living radionuclides up there, and you had to make totally monitoring to see what could the consequences be.
Another question from Facebook here, can radioactive iodine be removed from water by using carbon filters?
Maybe, but I will not come up with a final answer to that. I'm not a technical man at this point. Possibly you could do it, but I would not come up with a black-white answer to that.
Another question from Facebook here is, how about going or taking a bath and children taking baths? Is that safe?
Yes, I believe it's safe if the Japanese authorities are following their limits for water regarding that. I think there should be no problem taking baths in that kind of water.
A follow-up question regarding the passing of a radioactive cloud. How will you know when it's actually safe to go back outside again? And will the surrounding or the environment after that be contaminated by radioactivity?
The authorities will follow and measure a cloud in case you have a major release, and they can after that see now we have no more activity in the air, and then they can give recommendation based on that. When you have a cloud passing in an area, you might have deposition on the ground, and if you have rain at the same time, you could expect that the deposition would be higher. But in both cases, it will be necessary to make measurements afterwards to see which level you have of deposition on the ground, and based on such measurements you will be able to come out with a recommendation whether you need to do something regarding protection of the population.
One more question. If you do not feel like taking iodine tablets, are there any natural foods that you can recommend eating in a situation like this?
No, I could not do that. I think if you want to protect your thyroid, you need a certain amount of stable iodine, and that you will only have in iodine tablets, not in some foodstuff.
One more question from Facebook here is, how long below ground or how much concrete do you need to seal from a nuclear fallout?
I think I don't understand that question.
That question has to be specified a bit more, I believe. Okay.
Are there any more questions? Please come up with them on Facebook.
We do not have any more immediate questions here and now.
Then I would like to thank you for all the question, and I hope that we will be able to give you some answers you can use, and we thank you very much.
Sorry, there is one last question here, and that is, what are the first physical symptoms of radiation poisoning?
If you receive a very, very high dose exposure in a short time, the first symptom you will recognize is that you will have problems with your stomach, you will feel sick, and that's the way you see it first.
There is a few more details regarding the first question, and that is that the question regarding the concrete and so on. The question is specified as following: how many meters of concrete do you need to block the radiation?
It depends on where the radiation comes from and in which amount. It's right if you have a very big amount of activity and you had to shield for that. In some senses you need considerable amount of concrete, but you don't need any shielding from the fallout coming if you have a cloud going over you and deposit activity. You are using that kind of shielding at the power plant in order to be able to work there, both on normal operation and now in the accident situation. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
So thank you very much to Gino and Kåre for sharing their expertise and answering the many questions. My name is Franz Mike Melvin. I'm the ambassador of the Danish Embassy here in Tokyo. Thank you for following us here today, and keep safe. Goodbye.